that book, chapter 50 of Genesis. I want to preach to you on heroes for our times. This week is, I am told, is law enforcement week. And so they are our heroes. And then God has a place for all of you to be a hero for times like this. I want to mention some qualities about life in 2019 that you will establish yourself in God's eyes as a hero. That's right. You say, me, a hero? Yes. You will be a hero in God's eyes if you follow what the Scripture has to say. The Bible reads in Genesis chapter number 50, and I begin reading with verse number 14. And Joseph returned into Egypt, and he and his brethren, and all they that went up with him to bury his father after he had buried his father. And when Joseph's brethren saw that their father was dead, they said, Joseph will peradventure hate us, and will certainly requite us all the evil which we did unto him. And they sent a messenger unto Joseph, saying, Thy father did command before he died, saying, So shall ye say unto Joseph, Forgive, I pray thee now, the trespass of thy brethren, and their sin, for they did unto thee evil, and now we pray thee, forgive the trespasses of the servants of the God of thy father. And Joseph wept when they spake unto him. And his brethren also went and fell down before his face. And they said, Behold, we be thy servants. And Joseph said unto them, Fear not, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, you thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. Now therefore fear ye not. I will nourish you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spake kindly unto them. Heroes for these times. When you and I think of a hero, I can tell you what I think about a hero. When I was a little boy, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we would rush home from school to be home from school at 4 o'clock, because on the TV screen would come The Adventures of Superman. And Superman would stand there with his arms crossed. He's faster than a speeding bullet. He's quicker than a locomotive. He can jump higher than the highest building. Superman, we thought, was awesome. He was our hero. That's what we called him. And then another generation passed, and all of a sudden comes Star Wars. And you see these fantastic cosmonauts and astronauts out there in space doing heroic things. And they were billed as heroes. And then you and I think about Rocket, the boxer, who a generation ago, he came on the screen and he boxed his way into every heart. And we thought, my, what a hero. But I want to tell you that what you see on TV and what's called heroes is nothing more than a land of make-believe. I mean, Popeye can eat spinach and have muscles. The astronaut can have a terrible accident. They put him together with bionic parts. And all of a sudden, he moves with bionic power. And now he's selling Hondas. We think of a hero this morning. God gives us not the land of make-believe so you and I can identify and qualify who a hero is. The Bible tells us that a hero is one who has the strength of character and is possessed and has a disposition to give out acts of kindness. The Bible tells us that a hero is someone who has the power of purity in their inner life and in the motives of their heart. When you and I quit defining the word hero by make-believe and Hollywood, by who can make an adventurous, suspenseful movie, an action-packed movie, which can be entertaining, and you need to relax once in a while, and so do I, and watch something like that. But they're not our heroes. The guys who can bounce a ball down a court, and I saw a phenomenal thing. I'm not into basketball, but Carol and I with Mr. Johnson a few weeks ago, and he loves Duke basketball. There's a guy on Duke basketball team. 1/3 from the end of his court, he can bounce the ball and stop, and 2/3 all the way down the court can make a phenomenal shot. And he made them all through the game. Didn't miss a one. And I'm sitting there spellbound. But I will tell you, that is not our hero. Just because a man can bounce a ball, dunk a ball, throw a ball accurately, precisely to hit a small net 100 feet away, that is not quality of calling someone a hero. A hero is someone whose life inspires you to do good. A hero is someone whose life you and I desire to imitate and emulate and be like. And the man I just read to you about this morning's name is Joseph. And I'm going to tell you, Joseph is a hero because his life deserves to be imitated. When you and I think of the life of Joseph, we get inspiration, we get inspired to be our best and do our best. And not cut corners and just get by. Heroes. When you think of law enforcement officers, whether they're in their impressive uniform or whether they're undercover or whether their job description is not a uniform with a badge, their badge is under a jacket, however they appear, law enforcement personnel are our heroes. Look for every opportunity you can to let them know you appreciate who they are. Just Friday, I was at Bojangles. I had just left seeing Luther, and there were 3 city officers sitting at the table eating, and I ate, and then I slipped over, and they were still talking. I said, "Excuse me, gentlemen, I'm a pastor, and I just want you to know I want to thank you for being America's heroes." And they said, "Sir, thank you for telling us that. We really appreciate you taking your time to tell us that." Just a few months ago, I was at Bojangles again. You know, my watering hole. I was at Bojangles again. There were 3 highway patrolmen in there. And I went up to them and I said, "Thank you, gentlemen, for being our heroes." And again, their response, "Thank you for taking your time to tell me." Last year, I was in a restaurant in Reedsville. I'd left Moses Cone Hospital. There were 4 sheriff's deputies around the table. And I went over to them and I said, "Thank you for being our heroes." Mr. McDaniel is one of our heroes, right along with Mike Taylor. A hero is one whose life matters. Now I want to tell you how you too can be a hero. Is when you determine that your life is not just how easy you can make it, instead of serving at the altar of convenience, making everything convenient for you, happy for you, it's all about me. When you get away from that and you sternly face life and look it in the eye and you say, "I'm going to make a difference in somebody's life," you then qualify yourself as on your way to becoming a hero. Look what Joseph did. What qualified Joseph to be a hero? Joseph handled adversity. Things were not always well for Joseph. The passage that I read to you, he's on the throne. He's a government officer. He is second only to Pharaoh, but he didn't always live in that position. Life was a rocky road for him. Life had many hurts for him, but he handled the adversities that came his way, and he had many adversities. In fact, it is Joseph who handled the adversities so well that it is the mothers of Israel who would, one after one, every night, they would teach their children, be a Joseph, imitate him, learn from him, know of him, be a Joseph. Why? Because he knew how to handle adversity. When you and I begin learning how to handle adversity, that is one of the number one signs of maturing. Having maturity. When you and I were children, if somebody took something out of, a bigger brother took something, or a bigger sister took something out of your hand, you cried. I cried. We all cried. We just felt awful. Our world fell apart. The trouble is, I've seen 30-year-old babies break a fingernail, or the mascara runs, and the world just falling apart. I've seen 60 and 70-year-old babies who don't get their way in a committee meeting, and the world falls apart, and they start scheming how they get rid of it. The sign of maturity is how you are able to handle the adversity. Because I'm going to tell you, life is full of it. 2019 is full of it, and it's going to be full of it every day on your calendar. It's going to be a lot of it. What are you going to do? Stay at the bottom? Or are you going to be like this cork? You're going to be made of the kind of stuff that just came right back to the top. How did Joseph handle adversity? In Genesis chapter 37, we are introduced to Joseph. He's on the ground as a little boy. He's playing with a bird's nest. That's what little boys did in the ancient days. They found natural things to play with. And he played with the bird's nest. His dad loved him so much, he made him a coat of many colors. His dad was a good man, but I want to tell you, his dad played favorites somewhat. He was a good man, a godly man, but he played favorites. And because of that, he showed favoritism to Joseph over his other sons. That is never good, to show favoritism to a certain child in your family. You're to treat them all the same. Now, that is an easy thing to do. Parents tell me, they say, well, some of your children just so easily respond and are obedient, and others you just have to plead and cry and threaten for them to do the simplest task. And I understand. But at the same time, even though every child is different, my brother and I, we were as different as night and day. Every child is. But every child should be loved the same. Joseph is treated with his father with a special coat that he didn't give his other sons. He's treated with pampering. And his brothers get jealous, and because of that, they take Joseph, they have a plot, they take Joseph, all the boys are out doing their work. That's another sign of maturity. As early as you can. I remember 12 years old, I had a paper route, a weekly paper route, and then at summertime, when school was out, I had a daily paper route. And another sign of maturity is working, being responsible, and earning a living. Don't have your parents this year just give you everything. Learn how to earn some money on your own. And the younger you're able to do that and take on responsibility will bring you to maturity even quicker. The sons take Joseph away. The brothers take Joseph away. And they've already plotted and schemed. They're tired of daddy showing favoritism. And so they take Joseph and they strip him of his coat. They dip it in blood, so that they can fabricate a story that an animal killed Joseph. They stick Joseph down in a pit. I mean, Joseph goes from pampering to a pit. And his coat of many colors is stripped from him. And it represents his freedom is stripped. His prosperity is stripped. All that he has is stripped. Even his protection is stripped. His bigger brothers were there to take care of him and to protect him. And they didn't. They're the ones that put him in the pit. Sold him to a Midianite. And now his father is mourning his son, while unbeknown to the dad, there's a Midianite camel caravan has bought him and lifted him up out of the pit. And can you hear Joseph as he's pleading, brothers, please don't abandon me. Don't leave me. It's breaking my heart. How can you do me like this? But they did him like that. Another sign of maturity. And how do you handle adversity? Is realizing that not everybody who smiles in your face is really for your best benefit. It would pay you and me to have just a little ounce or two of suspicion and not be so gullible. Just because somebody knocks at your door and has a big smile doesn't mean you need to unlock your door and open it to them. If you don't know them, don't open your door unless you have adequate protection or knowledge of who that person is. We live in that kind of times. And Joseph is pleading, why have you done this to me? He's absolutely devastated. Everything he's known is stripped away from him. How does he handle it? Well, he dries his tears. And he's stumbling behind that Midianite camel caravan. And they take him down to Egypt. And they sell him to a government official named Potiphar. And Potiphar takes Joseph in. Joseph is bemoaning the fact that his loved ones have turned their back on him. How could they betray him? But he sets his mind to doing what he needs to do, and he does it with all of his might. Now notice with me. How do you handle adversity? Let me show you what Joseph did while he was in Potiphar's house. All of the years he was being a servant and a slave. That's what he was, a slave, a common slave. You know what he did? Number one, he stayed in touch with God. You want to handle your adversities? Stay in touch with God. Don't get mad at God. Don't blame God. Look what you've done to me. I've had a bad week. I'm not paying my tithes. I'm not praying. I'm not reading my Bible. How do you like that, God? Don't we sound like children when we do that? We don't get over anything when we act like that. But when we come to God and we stay in touch with Him and say, God, I don't know how it is that I've been treated like this and mistreated and betrayed, but God, I love you. I want to stay in touch with you. I want you to fill my heart with your presence. He stayed in touch with God. He kept the right attitude. Think about your job. How people on your job mistreat you. And then every person has a job. There's somebody somewhere, and probably several people who mistreat you. But you'll handle your adversity in 2019 if you'll stay in touch with God. Don't let that person make you bitter. Stay in touch with God. Have the right attitude. When you come into the job in the morning, don't have people thinking because of a bad attitude, oh, Lord, here they come. Yeah, they go to the St. Mark Church. You better watch them. They'll give you a piece of their mind. You better watch them. They won't take it. They'll just blow up on you. Or they'll sit around and pout. No, don't be like that. Be the kind of person when you walk into the door and others see you, that people know if you've been mistreated or not. And yet they see you with a song in your soul and the joy of God in your heart. That will do more for them than you standing over them with a huge Bible saying you need to get right with God. Now, if they do need to get right with God, your testimony and the way you conduct yourself will be the greatest testimony you can have. Because I'm going to tell you this, there are people who tell others, you better get right or you're going to hell. And to have that kind of attitude, it doesn't matter how much witnessing they do and how much they talk about going to church. Their attitude is so poor, nobody's going to church because of that kind of an individual. But if you keep the right kind of attitude, God will bless you. He will give you the testimony on your job. You say, well, preacher, I've had things bother me and I've kind of blown it last year. Get back in touch with God. If you're alive this morning, you have all the ample opportunity. God's just waiting for somebody to say, forgive me, touch me again, and make the right connection. God can turn it all around. It's Satan that'll tell you, well, you kind of blown it. You've had a sour attitude. No, they're not going to believe in you. I'm going to tell you, all you've got to do is get the sweetness of God's sanctified grace in your life, and people will again be drawn to you. It'll take a little time, but it's worth it. That's how you handle adversity. And then Joseph kept looking for the right doors of opportunity. Every door that closed on him, he just kept with eyes of faith. God, there's something else for me to do. He didn't say, well, I'm just going to sit down. I'm tired of this. What can I do? I don't have a place of service. I don't feel like I can do anything. No. He said, this door's closed. My brother sold me into slavery. Here I am in Potiphar's house, in an Egyptian household, the enemy of Israel. I'm their slave. But God, I'm looking to you. You open the doors. And God opened the doors for Joseph on every step of the way. He handled his adversity. He stayed in touch with God, had the right attitude, and he kept looking for open doors. I'm going to tell you, every time one door closes, listen to me carefully. I want you to know before God Almighty, every time a door closes in your life, He'll open another door. Stay in touch with Him. He handled his adversity. How do you become a hero for these times? You handle your adversity. How do you become a hero for these times? Secondly, you say no to temptation. Temptation comes to every one of us. It came. Somebody said, well, I'm not tempted. I'm so sanctified. I'm so angelic. Oh, don't you hand me that. Paul the Apostle says that we're all tempted. Jesus Christ Himself was tempted. We are tempted. It is not a sin to be tempted. We are going to be tempted. If you haven't already this year, in the first 6 days, you're going to be tempted. You're going to be tempted. But all you got to do is say no. See, what we've just come through is the wonderful season of Christmas. And we celebrate, most Protestants celebrate it on December the 25th. In my research, I love the Greek fathers. And in my research, the Greek fathers, they established that January the 6th, today, is Christmas. I think they're closer to it than we are. Because I think really, some scholars say Christmas is really, Jesus was born probably late February, early March. But whatever the timing is, we've just come through that season. And out of the gratitude of God giving His Son, put Him in a manger so that He could die for our sins. It is up to you and I to say, God paid the price. It's up to me to count the cost. I've got a price to pay. Charles Haddon Spurgeon said it like this: we're all walking on a slippery road. But that doesn't mean you have to slip up and slide away. Temptation comes to us in every form. I'm going to mention one. I've got to close. Sexual temptation. That will come to a human being in their life, and everyone knows about that kind of temptation. Why? Because it is truly a temptation. It is a temptation that taps into one of the strongest and desires of the human mind and body. But I want to tell you this morning that you can look at that temptation and you can say no. Why? Sexual sin is this. Sexual sin is this. It is when a human being has sex with somebody else who is not their spouse. Can I say that again? Sexual sin is when you have sex with somebody else that is not your spouse. And the world doesn't care about your morals. Two of our couples, real quickly. You think the world cares that Jennifer's married to Chris? No, they don't. They don't. You think the world cares one bit that Damien belongs to Sarah? No, they don't care. There was a day when people respected marital lines of commitment. They don't anymore. They think it's just a piece of paper. Unless you and I prove to them it's more than a piece of paper. It's not only our commitment to one another, it's our commitment to God. You talk about saving yourself a boatload of trouble. You will save yourself a boatload of trouble when you look at that temptation and you say, no. Now watch this. Now notice this. Notice this. I'm going to close. Becoming a hero for the times isn't you withstanding the evil forces of some make-believe creature that comes to the earth and you tying him up and defeating him and throwing him into the Atlantic Ocean and the president calling you to Washington, D.C. and they give you a beat for it. That's make-believe. Real heroes are people who handle adversity, who know how to say no to temptation and live with it. You got to teach your young people how to say no to sexual temptation. Why? Because young people are some of the most mobile people in our society. They're here today, they have the closeness of the family, but one day your child will move away. I was only 4 years out of high school, and my life had revolved around my mother. But after that, I was 5 hours away from her the rest of her natural life. Young people move away. They're not always going to have your closeness, hearing you pray over them. They're not always going to have this church. If they move away, we don't want you to move away. But some will move away from this. You will not always have a good church where someone is going to be confronting you with the Word of God and letting you know what's right and what's wrong. But I want to tell you, you can be taken out of your closeness of your family, your community, and your church. But I want to tell you what nobody can take you out of. Nobody can take you out of your commitment to God. Nobody except you. Potiphar's wife comes to Joseph and says, Joseph, I want to make love to you. I know I belong to Potiphar. He's a powerful man. Oh, Joseph, if you just give in to me, you're a beautiful man. Just give in to my desires. Let me do whatever I want to with you. I will see to it that my husband promotes you and puts you on a pedestal of prominence. And all you got to do is sleep with a beautiful woman. You can have everything you want. That's what the devil says. That's what Hollywood says. That's why church is so important, because Hollywood, I wonder how many scenes of adultery our young people see on the internet and the TV. It's just there. How many do you and I have to stomach trying to watch a program through the week? That's why church is important in 2019. Get them here so they can hear about the eternal truths. Hollywood doesn't care about your child. They only care about getting your child's money at the movie theater so they belch all the stuff out of purgatory and assault their young tender minds. Here's what Joseph said when she kept after him. I want you. I want you. I want you. I want you. Think of what, that not only would have been physical pleasure, you think about a man's ego. Men are egos. We're just all ego. And think about how his ego must have strutted like George Jefferson. You would think the natural, that's what a man would do, but not Joseph. She pled with him, begged him. Here's his response. He said, how can I do this thing with you and sin against my God? When you and I are thinking about cutting corners in any area of life, trying to get by, making it easier on ourselves, when you and I think about that, in reality, what you're doing is hurting the God who loves you more than even your mama or your daddy. God loves you that much. Joseph will not give in. She lies on him, has him put in prison, and there he is in prison. But he handled his adversity well. What did he do in the prison, the same thing he did at Potiphar's wife when he was pulled out of the pit. He stayed in touch with God. He kept the right spirit, and he kept looking for the right doors to open. And he just wanted to find some place to serve God and do what God wanted him to do. And that's what he did. And he stayed in touch with God. He didn't get mad at God. He didn't get mad at the church. He didn't get mad at life. He got in touch with God, who is the originator and creator of all life, who can change lives completely around. You may think your life's a total mess. Give it to God, and He'll turn it completely around just for you. He'll do that for you. God eventually brought Joseph out of that prison because He gave Joseph an answer to prayer, brought him out of the prison, put him in a position where he interpreted a dream for Pharaoh. God gave him that ability. You see, there are things that you and I can't do. God can help you do. And He'll help you this year. Joseph trusted God. Joseph interpreted a dream. Put Joseph on the throne, next, second in command to Pharaoh. Now notice, a famine's in the land. Joseph's brothers are coming now. They've been away from him for decades. They're coming now back into the land to get food. And there they meet Joseph. Let me give this last principle in closing. How do you become a hero for these times? How can God use you? You handle adversity by staying in touch with God. Looking for the right opportunities to serve. When one door closes, look for another. Keep a right attitude. Serving, loving. He did that. And God now puts him in a position where he's meeting his brothers who sold him into slavery, who hurt him. He now has the ability and the authority and the power of life. He can now punish them. But instead, thirdly, how do you become heroic for these times? You forgive. You forgive. Now, forgiveness most of the time comes at a time when we don't feel like forgiving. Maybe 1 out of 10 times we forgive when we feel like it. 9 out of 10 times when you forgive, and you don't feel like forgiving, but you forgive. What is forgiveness? Is forgiveness saying, well, what you did to me, I just don't even think about it anymore, and you didn't even really do it to me. No, that is not forgiveness. That is not facing reality. Forgiveness is when you say, that individual hurt me, they don't care. But I'm going to care about my God, and I'm going to represent Him well. What they did, I cannot forget. It's going to be in your mind. I cannot forget. But I release them from any desire of something bad happening to them. That is forgiveness. And you have to forgive over and over and over again. You watch a TV program about somebody getting even with somebody else, and all of a sudden you think about 2 or 3 people hurt you. You think, you see a sack of flour fall on somebody, hurt somebody else on TV. You say, boy, that'd be pretty good to Joe down the road that hurt. I'd love a 200-pound bag of flour to fall on him. Then you think, oh, what did I just say? What did I just feel? Lord, I'm sorry. I forgive that individual for hurting me. You want to become heroic for these times? Handle adversity. Say no to temptation. Don't see what you can get by with life. Don't give in to the temptation not to pay your tithes. Don't cut corners with God this year. Nobody's going to know it but you and God. Well, why do you want to do it? Determine the attitude of Joseph. How can I do this against my God who loves me so much? And by the way, He's allowing you to breathe your very next breath. If you didn't have your next breath, I'd be preaching your funeral this week. But you have it. Don't take it lightly. And then learn to forgive. Stand with me, please. Stand with me, please. This morning, I want you to slip from your place, and I want you to come around.